What's up, everybody? Blessed be. My name is Manon, and you are watching Witch in the Working, where we will be discussing all things witchy in and around, throughout and about, above, below, and beyond. Please visit me on my other platforms as well, including Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon, all linked down in the description below. The full script to this video and most of the others is available on my Patreon account for download if desired. Also, please visit my Shopify store, also listed in the description below, to get your Witch in the Working shirts, mugs, bags, beanies, or what have you. When you first begin your journeys through this seemingly endless maze of occult practices, it can be quite overwhelming and indeed even very frustrating at times. Reading book after book and watching YouTube video after YouTube video, the answers to your many questions and concerns get answered multiple times with multiple contradictions. Some of the things are simple and straightforward, and others can take decades to journey with before you begin to realize and conceptualize a true answer. This answer you ultimately finally take to heart can be even trickier, because many times in the occult this answer is completely subjective and your personal very own answer, and not necessarily the answer for everybody else. So when shared with others, it may not work for them, making it just your answer. What's really crazy is another decade down the road and your answer that you took to heart and set in stone upon changes, and now you get the all-inspiring and once again possibly frustrating cycle of figuring it out all over again. These are the lessons and teachings that most all of us in the occult realm share in common, and that is the having an open mind is a gift imposed to us by the gods, a gift that keeps on giving through this life and the next. This gift of the open mind and growth keeps us seeking and pushing ever onwards towards our so-called enlightenment and at oneness with the gods. In this episode, we're going to talk all about your growth and your understanding as a witch, and how not to let these trials and tribulations get you down and out during your lessons from the gods. With this being said, without further ado, roll the intro. Welcome back, everybody. So where do I even begin with this? This is another one of those episodes where it's all from the heart, so to speak. Okay. I think I know where to start. I think I know what we're going to do. Okay. All right, let's take it from here. In the earliest of days, when mankind was just starting out, blazing new pathways and figuring out life in general, things were exciting, as so much of what occurred naturally in this world was magic to our ancestors. The rains, snow, earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, lightning, thunder, fire, the four seasons, death and birth, and so much more was all very magical and sometimes very feared by our ancestors. Obviously, as time went on and people began to experience these things much more often over the centuries, for instance, sometimes for some of these things the fears turned into understanding and knowing, therefore breaking the cycle of fear for any specific occurrence. For instance, there was a time when fire was feared, and no one knew how it was created and that it must be from the gods, most likely the sun god. But once early man learned how to control fire and even create it, and how useful it was in everyday life, this fear gave way to love and need. Without early recognition and control over fire, we would have had a much harder life, most likely moving forward, and probably centuries, if not millennia, behind from where we are today. And so it is, one of the first gods ever worshipped by man was in fact, and I've mentioned this in many videos before, the sun. The sun gave warmth and light in a world that could be very dark and very cold at times. The darkness was feared by many for a very common and ancient reasoning that still engages with all of us today. This reason is the unknown. Many of us fear the unknown, and we fear what is different sometimes. For instance, one of the most feared occurrences in life is death itself. Although death is a very natural and normal part of life and everyone has to go through it, whether you like it or not, it is by many quite feared because we simply do not know what actually happens afterwards. Is there life after death? This is a question asked for millennia by the greatest masters to date and has never been answered as a fact. Many have speculated and gave some of their best scientific answers, and many have even claimed to speak with the dead after the fact. However, in the end, no pun intended, there is no scientific proof of what happens after death to a person. Is there really a soul? Does this soul live on and travel to other places? Does this soul reunite with other friends and loved ones that have also passed on through the same process? So many questions only answered by religious fanatics and spiritual gurus throughout the millennia and around the world. Unfortunately, many of the religious and spiritual gurus all have a different concept and answer, which again leaves us wondering which one is right and which one is wrong. Or maybe many are right and only some are wrong. Or maybe, as I myself believe, they're all right and there is no wrong. Again, all food for thought, and this thought has been going on for thousands of years. And the fact is, the only right answer is the one that is right for you and you alone. So to get back to the sun, many, practically all humans at one point, worshipped the sun as it was a savior from the unknown and the conqueror of things that went bump in the night. It brought warmth to cold days and melted the freezing snow, bringing forth life once again to the regions. This life meant food, which in turn supported life in a cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth over and over again. It's no wonder people worship the sun, especially since it went away every day, allowing the night to conquer half of the cycle. Early man also realized these cycles and realized the seasons were a thing. They knew there was a time when the sun would wane in strength for a few months, allowing the cold winter to visit and grasp hold of the surrounding earth. These were times when sacrifices and honorings were significant as to give thanks to the sun and show the sun that the people appreciated its power and please don't leave them for good and come back with its warmth and light that everyone embraced so much, and with good reason, as again, without the sun, this earth would perish. Along with this worship of the sun, other gods and goddesses began to be born, mostly through unexplained occurrences and circumstances that were a natural part of life, but again, misunderstood and many times feared. And a god or goddess of rain, thunder, lightning, earthquakes, volcanoes, birth, death, growth, fertility, snow, the heavens, the underworld, the seas, wildlife, and even emotions such as fear, anger, happiness, jealousy, and most importantly, love. Everything of misunderstanding and unknowing was usually given a god or goddess to rule over it. And in turn, this was an avenue or pathway that was laid to be able to understand this occurrence, thing, or circumstance a little easier, or at least attempt to. The way they would see it is simple. If you lack the understanding of something and want to understand it better, or even more so have a negative occurrence not affect you, then honor the god and or goddess of that thing, and hopefully you'll get whatever it is you want or don't want. Circumstances differ in each situation. So, truth is, it was gods and goddesses created, and sometimes even a god and goddess within one being, a sort of hermaphroditic being consisting of both. Regardless, male and female were focused during these creations, and for good reason. Everything alive and containing that spark of life that allowed for growth and development in all living things encompasses a force of nature that in most all living things is either male or female, masculine or feminine. More than 99% of all life procreates utilizing masculine and feminine qualities, functionalities, and energies. There's a very small portion of life that even starts off as one sex and then transitions to another throughout life, literally, physically. Some examples are clownfish, races, moray eels, and frogs, which are mostly fish and amphibians. Female hyenas will even have a penis, but no testicles to act as a reproductive organ. In general, however, most all organisms in life, from plants to insects to mammals, are either male or female and reproduce to continue life throughout the millions and even billions of years inhabiting this earth. There's been male and female living organisms procreating on this earth long before mammalian organisms even inhabited it, and it has been this way for millions of years. Reproduction is one of the most important factors as to where this earth is today. So it's no wonder why early man placed such importance on male and female worship and implemented gods and goddesses to represent forces outside or greater than their understanding and grasp. was very easy for early man to develop this mind frame as its simple law of nature. All humans needed to do was look around them. Everything they knew of worked this way. Male and female organisms copulate and create more species. Scientifically, there are 5 things for animals to maintain life, and these are oxygen, water, food, shelter, and reproduction. I believe that's all of them, but I know reproduction is one of them in there. Now, I know I'm going to catch flack from some for talking about this subject, but I can assure you I am not out to offend anyone. I'm not trans or homophobic in any way, shape, or form. I'm simply discussing the basic laws of nature as they've been discovered through science and survival throughout the millions of years. So for the triggered, before you come out of the woodworks and start screaming whatever phobia you think I am, that is above and beyond this discussion. And I have all the respect for you in the world for whatever you decide you want to be at any given moment. That is your decision and your prerogative, and I am not out to offend anyone again. I'm just talking about the cold hard facts of Mother Nature. By all means, you do you, but also by all means respect the natural order of things and the way they've been for millions of years. This isn't something that can be changed because you say so or think so. This process has been developed and perfected over hundreds of millions of years and will continue in this manner for as long as this Earth remains a rock in orbit around the sun. It is what it is. But to move on and simplify, throughout the thousands of years of mankind having the brain power to create and empower gods and goddesses has always been through the selective process of male and female, because this was how the world around them worked and still works to this day. So early man had to have an answer for why things are the way they are. Somehow develop an explanation and story, for instance, on how we as humans and everything else in the universe got here. They need an explanation about the things they just can't quite grasp and the things that cause fear, especially death and what happens after death. They seek an explanation as to what is their purpose and why are they here living this life, as well as all of the others who inhabit this world and the worlds beyond. These explanations, though they differ in all shapes, forms, and sizes, come to us in the form of religion. People begin to create stories behind the gods and goddesses and begin to create pathways and roadmaps from creation to foretelling the end of our world. These religions, all of them created by multiple ideas throughout the centuries, are followed by millions and even billions of people today. These religions have many times done more damage and caused more death than anything else in the history of mankind. People hold on to these beliefs and ideology with such intensity that they're willing to take another person's life who doesn't see things the same way they do. Hell, there are even people in the same religious faith who kill each other over semantics and fine details they don't agree upon. It's just ridiculous. There has been hundreds, if not thousands, of differentiated belief systems throughout our existence as humans on this planet, some forgotten through the sands of time, and others still existing today for thousands of years. Of course, these religions have all grown and changed throughout the centuries, sort of evolved, so to speak, with the times. But there are others who refuse to let these things change and evolve and still practice barbaric punishments and rectifications from books that were written during times when a lot less was understood. Again, this is extremist holding on to the fragile threads of an outdated religious view, but nonetheless, it's still a thing as barbaric as it is. This brings us to pagan religions and other occult systems. There are quite a few pagan religions today, for instance, Druidism, Hellenism, heathenry, spiritualism, Santeria, voodoo, and of course, the big one many of us are all familiar with, Wicca. Just like many of the other religions out there, whether Abrahamic based such as Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, or other largely followed religions such as Hinduism or Buddhism, pagans also have their concepts and ideas of how things came to be, each with their own story and ideas. We as modern day pagans, however, are pretty much, I'm sure, exempt from the extremeness of killing each other because our ideas may differ from our neighbors. We as modern day pagans that have embraced some of these newer religions are sometimes labeled as neo-pagans. And what does this mean? It simply means that we have discovered and gathered information from more ancient times, from ancient cultures, and have attempted and are attempting to reconstruct the rites, spells, and ideas that played out centuries ago. What comes from this is very special though. Most all neo-pagans are on the same page with each other, and there are very few arguments on what system is right or wrong, because any pagan with their weight in frankincense knows that there's no right and wrong in these matters. There just is. I believe this is because in modern day paganism, we're all searching for what some would call enlightenment and understanding. The passion for knowing and understanding who we are and how we can better ourselves and help humanity has overcome the passion for power and domination over others. I've never met a pagan whom expressed that they wanted to be Wiccan, for instance, so that they could strengthen numbers and rule the world someday. Most modern-day pagans are spiritualists and really not religious zealots, so to speak. This brings me to a saying I like to use quite a bit when expressing the difference between religion and spirituality. If you bring 12 different religious leaders into a room together over an idea, you will end up with a war, most likely. If you bring 12 different spiritualist leaders in a room together, you'll end up with a compromise and most likely a solution. This is mainly because all spiritualists speak the same language and have the same goal. Spiritualists know that all religions are just another path to the same God, and that the way to God or goddess doesn't matter because it's all the same in the end. This eliminates all the crap of who's right and who's wrong because none of it matters when it actually comes to this stuff. This brings me to the whole point of this video, and why I say back to the basics and how it relates to us pagans and occultists alike, but more so to the pagan populace, as some occult systems are simply magical systems that can be practiced by Christians or Jews, for instance, in which case your religious struggles may keep you locked into a closed room of like ignorance towards other religions and beliefs. If this is you, I apologize, but keep watching, as this may be a decent message for you as well, depending on your stance. There are many systems in pagan religions today, as I've mentioned a few earlier in this video. Many of the pagan beliefs and morals are similar across the boards, with small differences here and there. Most pagans believe in the forces of nature and work with them on a daily basis, even if it's just to consciously revel in the subtle energies of birds and trees, creatures, and the life that surrounds them. Most pagans believe in the cycle of things, the seasons, birth, life, death, and rebirth. Cycles as great as the planetary systems around us and the microcellular universes within us. Everything is cyclical. Time itself involves cycles. Most pagans believe in a connectedness with one another and everything in nature all around them. Most pagans believe in a god and goddess, a duality which has been expressed for millions of years in the foundations of creation through the masculine and feminine energies, as discussed earlier in this video. Most pagans believe in celebrating the cycles of the seasons, called Sabbats, and the cycles of the moon, called Esbats, usually through ritual practice either developed traditionally or eclectically. Doesn't matter. Most pagans have a respect for one another, whether your beliefs synchronize or not, and we try to respect other points of views, lifestyles, and traditions, pending they're non-harmful to others and respect the basic tenets of animal life. Although we as pagans embrace these ideals, these ways and practices are made up of thousands of concepts and ideas, and even sometimes the concepts and ideas contradict each other, as is bound to happen when thousands of things are lumped together to try and come to an understanding. Arguments and misunderstandings do occur within pagan discussion, and sometimes concepts, especially those about death and rebirth, can become heated topics on who, what, when, where, why, and how something can be. There are many pagan concepts and ideas that are not perfect and still to this day are being built upon and rediscovered as time ticks on, day after day, year after year, decade after decade. Let's face it, when it comes to religious beliefs, nothing is perfect and always has room to grow. There may be times when you yourself are faced with these complicated ideas and theories of how we got here and how we developed into this system or that system. There may be times in your witchy career when you are challenged with your particular system you may have embraced, and someone's comment sends you off to that rabbit hole where you'll need to soul search and journey to redeem a logical answer for yourself and only yourself all over again. Especially if you happen to belong to a certain tradition of witchcraft or Wicca and it delegates and expresses different opinions and circumstances than some other tradition that you may be in discussion with at the time. Again, no one is right or wrong. It's just a matter of what works for you. Do I have to create my own athame? What happens if I call the quarters before I cast a circle? What happens if I don't libate to the spirits? Am I going to get harassed or possessed? Can I buy my tools for my altar, or do I have to make them? Do I have to meditate before each ritual? What if I don't ground properly after casting a spell? Do I have to choose a pagan name, and does it have to correspond with a magical number? What if I didn't celebrate all 8 Sabbats this year? Can I cast a spell after the full moon? What if my father is reborn before I die, and will I ever get to see him in the afterlife or the next? Do I have to do a protection spell every month? What if I cast a spell and it comes back threefold? Is my cat my familiar? How do I know? And how do I honor her or him? Do I have to choose a god and or goddess? What if I don't? Is this the right god for me? Is this the right goddess for me? Is this the right system for me? Is this the right religion for me? Just stop. None of it matters. Go back to the basics. Close your eyes and imagine our ancestors thousands of years ago when time began. No politics, no systems, no religions, no judgment, no confusion. All that matters is you and the rhythm of the earth. God and Goddess are in you, and all living nature that surrounds you. You, the earth, the animals, the trees, the bushes, the sun, the moon, and everything alive around you are all connected, sharing the same pulse. With every heartbeat, you share synchronicity with all that surrounds you. Just stop every once in a while and listen. Feel, breathe the men. Everything you truly need is right there. All your answers are right there, and you already know everything you're supposed to know at this time. It's that simple, and it's all that truly matters. Everything else is smoke and mirrors, I promise. Well, that's gonna wrap up this episode of Witch in the Working. Did you like this video? So, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If you haven't already, then do so. Please don't forget to ring that little bell to be reminded of future episodes to come. I love you guys and gals. Until the next episode, blessed be.